What's up, guys? Welcome to video 2 of Coping Through COVID, Taking Control.
We're going to talk about actually two things. We're going to talk about taking control and next surrendering control, but I wanted to talk about these two issues because there's a lot of fears, anxieties, there's a lot of stuff going on, and it's important to be able to decipher what's within my control right now and how can I refocus on that. And of course that also includes your mental and emotional health being in your control. And then we'll talk about how to surrender the things that you can't get your hands on, you need to let go of. So that's what this video is going to be about.
So I think to start off, before I get into John's incredibly insightful stuff that I love, let me just start with a little practical stuff. Some objective data. Okay, for nurses, that's like vital signs. These are the numbers I need to know to be able to gauge my level of urgency with my patient. I can't just look at them and see what I think their blood pressure is. I need to give me some numbers, right? So I encourage you to go to your public health's website. So probably in your county, depending upon where you are. Every single day, I go to my county's public health website and I look at our numbers every day. And you don't need to do what I do, is I put them all in a spreadsheet so that I can have a big picture context of what's going on. Yeah, it's helpful to know that this many tests were done and this many positives were there. But is that more or less, or are we getting farther down? Is this I felt like the reporting that was happening and that snapshot was not enough for me to gauge my level of urgency, almost like vital signs. It's great if I can look at a blood pressure right now, but what's really helpful is to know the trend. Same thing with your labs or whatever. And I think this is the same. I need to know, especially with my personality, I'm someone who really likes to have some research, some numbers to help me know how to gauge how worried I need to be, because I wasn't the one-day snapshot wasn't enough. So definitely encourage you to check out the website of your public health department so that you can know exactly what's going on in your county.
For sure. So on the heels of that, something that we heard from nurses was, especially early on, we're afraid. What if we get this virus? And what if we bring it home to our kids? And what are the chances that, I'm truly putting myself in this really risky spot? And so being able, with those kind of fears that you're facing day in, day out, like you just said, to be able to stop and say, what do I know? What do the numbers say? What does the evidence say? That's a big thing when it comes to anxiety and fears. Well, let me start with what's my evidence for this thing that I'm worried about?
Let me draw a nurse parallel real quick.
Yep.
You do that every day when you're watching your patients and you're trying to figure out how worried you need to be. You'll look at the evidence.
Right. So it's always a good place to start. Not that evidence is the end-all be-all, which we'll talk about here in a bit.
Yeah.
But it's good because what it does is it takes you out of the emotion of it and gives you some hard data. So let's get a little technical with that for a second.
Are we going to get in the
physiology, neurobiology
forest kind of thing?
Yeah, let's go.
Let's go in the nerd forest, John. Lead me.
All right. After saying that, we're actually going to kind of sidestep and talk a little bit about the brain, emotions, emotional regulation. We're going to get a little technical here for a second.
I love it. Nerd here.
That's right.
We're going in the nerd forest, y'all.
Pretty interesting stuff. So obviously with what's going on, especially as a nurse, as a frontline worker, there's a lot of emotion involved in every day. There's emotion involved in, there's anxiety involved in, again, the what ifs of your health. There's the sadness, the pain of seeing what patients are going through. I'm sure there's frustration over the uncertainty and the changing protocol and all those things.
Yeah.
It's important to be able, in this type of environment, to acknowledge your emotion, which we're talking like the amygdala of your brain. So it's good to check in there and understand, here's what emotion is going on.
That
but
amygdala.
If you stay there, that's the problem. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I love the neuro stuff.
Yeah.
The amygdala is that emotional processing center of our brains. And it's interesting because with the way that we take control of our own thoughts, we can regulate its activity.
Well, so what that involves is not getting stuck in the amygdala, not getting stuck in that emotional part of the brain, being able to say, I need to acknowledge that, but now I need to remember that I have a prefrontal cortex, I have a front part of the brain that can process, that can reason, that can think.
So what I'm hearing you say, we react to a situation innately with our amygdala, but we need to consciously kind of use a different part of our brain to guide our decision making. Am I hearing you right?
Right, and to deal with that stress that we're facing. I really like this Venn diagram. It comes, it's big in dialectical behavior therapy, and so what it has is, a little Venn diagram. So you got your two circles, and you have the rational mind, and then you have the emotional mind. And so as they overlap, that space in the middle, they call that the wise mind, because you need both. You need to acknowledge and identify some of the emotion of the situation, but you also have to bring in that rational mind so you can make wise decisions. You can navigate this. Yeah,
because too far on either side, right? If you're too rational, you're going to be cold and sterile and right? That's such a good point to have. You have to have that balance of both of them. And I certainly have been guilty of being too far and on either side, actually, I think.
For sure. And so right now, again, with all the uncertainty that's going on, being able to acknowledge, this can be scary. This is uncertain. I feel anxious. I feel frustrated. Okay, what does the evidence say about this whole situation? Now let's talk about like a frontline worker and nurse, and just some examples of how to go through your day and take control of what you can. So I get pretty specific with this stuff.
Okay.
So what I look at is in the midst of all this uncertainty, and again, listen, there's the uncertainty of the situation, but then there's all of the uncertainty we see around us and other people's emotion that's being brought into the situation, the nation, the world's emotion.
That's true.
So how to go through your day. I always encourage people, number one, have a solid routine. I can control, for the most part, how I set up my routine, how I put healthy things in my day that help keep me grounded and balanced. So that can go from, I think you guys have often 12-hour shifts.
Yep.
When I wake up, what are the first few things I need to do to get into my day? To just wake up, to be energized, to feel ready to go. That could involve, as I get up, because I know some people, they wake up with that anxiety. I need to wake up, and all I do is focus on getting my body physically awake with a shower. And maybe that involves putting some music on that just kind of, gets you ready for the day. Solid breakfast.
Your hype music,
Could be hype music. Could be like, I don't know, instrumental or something that calms you down and just regulates fight or flight. Who knows?
That's true.
Maybe you're really nervous about going into work. And it's looking at what do I have to eat? Healthy nutrition. And then I'm a huge fan of car rides to and from work or whatever kind of commute you have. Is that a good time for you to stop and just be silent and check in with yourself? And prepare yourself for, hey, today, here's what I know my job is at work. And I'm going to focus on these things. It could be, again, maybe music. It could be podcast or just something that you have to know kind of helps you prep for your day. It's kind of like pregame.
Oh my gosh. I was just going to say that. Yeah. I was like, you have
your pregame ritual.
Your pregame, and people are very specific with those. Like, especially like thinking back to school, people had very specific rituals, certain meals they would eat, and get their brain ready to be in the zone and to perform at optimum level.
Right.
And that I think is a great perspective to have going into a shift.
And again, that involves, and again, we're going to get into surrender and control. But what might be tough in the morning is your brain might be running through all the scenarios that you're not sure are going to happen. We got to refocus to, okay, here's what's in my control today. So if you are someone who likes to just get calm and think about your day, a good question I like to ask is, who am I going to be today? So that means, what can I control? And sometimes that just means saying, okay, yeah, I acknowledge all these things I'm uncertain about, but today I'm going to be poised. I'm going to be focused. I'm going to be calm. And those are just ways to kind of prep yourself to go into that.
I think it makes a big difference to be intentional about saying those things to yourself and the power that has.
Right.
I know when I was starting as a nurse and had all that anxiety, that was pretty intense. I think one of the most comforting things that I repeatedly told myself when I started going down that what if what if, was I know the resources, I know the people I need to call. If something happens that's crazy that I've not run into, I know who I can call to help me.
Right.
And just knowing that was very reassuring and helped probably calm my amygdala.
Yeah, and we're going to get into some of the stuff at work now, but one of my favorite sayings when you talk about kind of speaking, not just positive, but speaking strong things to yourself to help you be that person you want to be. One of my favorite sayings: "The power of life and death is in the tongue." And that means what we speak to ourselves.
Yeah. Probably the most powerful is to ourselves.
Absolutely. So as you're going into work, being able to identify what are some things I can take control of in my morning routine. When you get to work, what is the protocol? So you go and get report. Okay, what is on my agenda? What do I know I need to do? This goes back to what's my task list? What's the expectations? And then as you go through your day, maybe it helps to say, okay, now there's some scenarios that it seems likely, the evidence says it seems likely I may face this today. What's my protocol for that? What's my game plan for how I'm going to handle that? And then what I always encourage people from there is ground yourself into your day. And what do I mean by that? Grounding techniques, I often take people through just like something to exemplify it, which is, it's called the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 exercise. What are 5 things I can see? 4 I can physically feel. 3 I hear. 2 I smell. 1 I taste.
And as a nurse, that sense of smell might not be something you want to ground yourself into.
If you're lost in anxiety and you smell some of that stuff, it will pull you into the moment.
Pull you out real quick.
But it's all about how can I be in the moment to go through my day? And research shows the more that our 5 senses are involved in an activity and what we're doing, our brain can't be stuck in anxiety land, frustration land, or wherever it might be, an emotion.
And I've used this because I've dealt with anxiety in various situations, and it's incredibly powerful. Those simple grounding techniques. It's helped pull my brain out of not so healthy places in high anxiety situations.
Sure. And I'm trying to think of some good examples at work of, I think once you have your task list, most of the time I think I hear people say, well, once I'm working, my brain's engaged. But, things that can continue to foster that. I'm all the way as small as as I'm walking through the halls, maybe I just have something in my hand that, I kind of move back and forth, or maybe it's that drink that I have that kind of, again, pulls me into.
Here's a nurse one. We always have alcohol swabs in our pocket. What if you took out one alcohol swab and wrote on it, "This is hard, but I can do it." And you put it in your pocket. And anytime you're playing with that one, you just know, I can do it. I can do this. Or whatever phrase that you need to be reminded of that's going to help keep your keep that wise mind rolling. Might be something to help keep that on your mind.
Yeah. Now these are tough times for frontline workers and nurses. So does this ensure you're never going to have an overwhelming moment? No, of course you're still going to have them. This is taking control of what you can. And so on the heels of that, can I control when I make sure I take breaks? And on those breaks, what are some ways that I can just have a few minutes to disconnect from work? Is it being able to go outside and go for a walk if it's nice? Again, is it music? Is it a quick phone call to somebody? These are kind of our coping skills as we go through our day.
So I've got if you're a parent or, got dogs or whatever, and someone's with them, it'd be great to say, hey, on my days off or when I'm working, can you text me a bunch of kid pictures so that when I'm on my break, I can remind myself of the reality of home and my babies or my fur babies or whatever it is. And I think that can help really calm that and remind yourself of your own reality, because when you're working 12-hour shifts, it's almost hard to remember that the outside world exists, especially when you have all that PPE on. My goodness.
Right. Text threads that on your break you can check, and it's just people sending funny memes or, I don't know, telling jokes, just whatever you can do that kind of helps you cope through your day. Another thing, and this is actually a little bit on the heels of boundaries, another thing that could be within your control is, like we said, if there's times where you feel like, I'm being asked to do more than I can really handle, or I feel like I need to delegate, or I just feel like I need more from my unit, my supervisor, being able to go and advocate for yourself and talk with your supervisor and check in. Hey, today's an overwhelming day, and here's how I'm feeling. Or if there's something that you disagree with or you're struggling with, I know this goes back to even some of the moral injury of what if I disagree?
Yeah. Because it's important to actually go in and do that, because I think we assume our leaders watch us and just know what we're thinking, can tell we're overwhelmed, but they can't.
Right.
A lot of times they have no idea when we're at this emotional breaking point. So the more that we can advocate and communicate, and I'm not saying over communicate with every little thing, but if you know, making sure that they understand that, hey, I'm in a rough spot. Whatever support I can get, I really would like that. Or however wait, you know what, I can't commit to this, or whatever it might look like.
Yeah. And then if you need to advocate for yourself, or you need to, push back or disagree, we always talk about the corny I feel statements, right? And being assertive, but being able to do that in a way where you understand, okay, this is my supervisor, these are my teammates. Even if I disagree, I'm going to go and speak to them as if they are my teammate. Say, hey, I'm noticing this. I feel this way about it. I'd like to do this, or could we do this? Or I feel overwhelmed because it seems like a lot's being placed on my shoulders. Where can I hand some of this off? And
let's go back to the business side of things. We said your relationship with your employer is a business relationship. This is a negotiation almost. And negotiations aren't conflict. It's hey, how can we make this work so this is mutually beneficial? Because it is not right now for me, and it needs to be mutually beneficial. So that kind of helps make it more objective and not like this conflict and personal, but hey, this is what I need as a human for this partnership to work out, kind of thing.
So identifying how to go through your day, how to stay focused on what your protocol is, what your routine is, your rituals at work, your breaks, communicating where you need to. These are all part of taking control while you're at work. And there's going to be moments, like I said, where you feel overwhelmed. And maybe for some people, it's, I'm going to go take my break and I'm going to break down a little bit. I'm going to cry a little bit and let it out.
And build myself back up. But sometimes you got to do that.
Right. So another analogy, I'm all about analogies that I like to use as it relates back to identifying that emotion, but then not getting lost in it.
Yes.
If you're a parent, and maybe not a parent, but if you're working with any young kid, you're trying to teach someone something and you see that they're struggling, and I'm going to continue with the parent analogy, but I know not everyone are parents. Let's say I'm trying to teach my daughter how to ride her bike. She's a little nervous. She's a little bit afraid because what if I fall? Well, she might fall. Okay. She's scared of that, and it's causing her to maybe at times not want to try, or I don't think I want to get up on this bike. But we know it's healthy for her to learn to push through that. So what we would probably do with our child is not get lost in their emotion.
Right.
So like, oh my gosh, you're so afraid. I hate to see you this way. I don't want you to be afraid. So yeah, we'll just avoid this. We acknowledge that and say, hey, I hear you. It can be a little scary to fall. But then we say, but things like, have you fallen before? And here's what we're going to do to try to keep that from happening. And if it does happen, here's what we'll do. Sometimes that's how we have to deal with ourselves. We have to be able to parent ourselves and say, yeah, I see this emotion, but I'm not going to get lost in it. I'm going to stay focused on what I can. Another good saying, analogies and sayings. The power of fear is distraction. The power of faith is focus. So when we're focused on the things that we need to do that day and what's within our control and doing our best at that, we're not going to get as lost in fear, which is going to try to distract us into, what about this and what if this, which again, we'll get into in the next video. So that's all that work stuff.
Well, and quick thing about that I just wanted to add, when I was thinking, you're saying the parent analogy, how that kid really feels safe if they have a parent they trust. To pull that over to nursing, if you've got leaders you feel safe with and trust, I think that also helps mitigate fear as well. So if you're a leader out there, knowing the power that you can have to really just bring down fear by being someone that your staff feels safe with, that they know that while the times are crazy and things are changing, that you're going to be that strong person who they can depend on, that is going to be clear with them, that they are going to trust and feel safe with.
Right. Now, moving on from that, and obviously we talked about rituals. I think rituals are very important for leaving work, for how you unwind, but also let's talk about your days off, your free time.
Yeah.
Everybody knows kind of the corny self-care, right? Like exercise, get good sleep, eat right. It's all really important. So that is a huge part of taking control of this situation, is being healthy in those areas. Let's face it, I know it's true for me, like in overwhelming circumstances, food becomes too good of a friend.
Oh, yes.
So other ways to deal and manage with the stress and with the anxiety and just with the exhaustion of work. I'm a huge fan of journaling, writing things down, sitting and having that moment to breathe and just acknowledge what you're feeling.
And not stifle it. Yourself feel it.
But have it be structured. So you're not like on this anxiety wheel where you're just kind of letting it run wild. But I'm going to take a few minutes. I'm going to breathe. I'm going to acknowledge what I feel. And then maybe I'm going to write a little bit about what's going on. But I always encourage people. And then when you finish writing, write about what's in the moment then, who you're going to be, what your next step is, to kind of ground yourself back into, okay, here's what comes next, so you don't get lost in that.
Journaling is amazing, and it really does pull you out of that emotional brain and does help you pull yourself into that middle wise part.
Right. Obviously, we have social connection. We have, at times, if it's a healthy thing, talking with people about what you're going through. Sleep is huge. And I know a lot of people struggle to sleep, especially with the stuff going on. I'm not going to go through all of sleep hygiene. You can Google it. But sleep hygiene is huge for when you can't sleep, for when your thoughts are running wild, some different ways to kind of calm yourself down. But having a good routine there, going and spending time with people, which we'll get into a little bit later.
So basically what I hear you saying is kind of going from the passenger seat to the driver's seat in your own thought life.
Absolutely.
That's what that comes down to.
Yep.
Okay.
Absolutely.
All right. Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Okay. One of the things that we talked about before too that I thought was a really helpful little saying quote was consciously choosing to critically think from this balanced, objective, and evidence-based place and not emotion. So finding all that objective data, and then, because when we get all this information thrown at us that evokes emotion, often fear, it's very difficult to make wise, critical, or exercise critical thinking and wise decisions. So even just acknowledging that that's what's going on, I think is empowering. Right? All right. Well, this concludes our second video. Thank you so much to the Rock Counseling Group for sponsoring it. If you would like to learn more about their telehealth services, we've got a link in the description. Thanks, guys.